catch it up. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's BAM. We're going to talk about layout and layout design and what a manuscript turns into, a beautiful book. So I'm going to share my screen and we've got a presentation for you and we've got lots to talk about because it's quite a detailed process once you get going. So let me share my screen and you tell me if you can see this okay. So
yes,
everybody see that all right? So here's my first page. So let's learn about book layout design, the art of book layout design and why it matters to get it right. So let's go and get digging deep into layout. So layout is all about the look of your book, and a well-designed book really does help your reader get into the flow. And in fact, if you're a fast reader like me, having like lots of space and things helps you. So I think it helps with the flow and it helps the reader sort of really connect with the book. So it affects also the first impression that your reader gets, you know, a really lovely book with sort of images and other diagrams can really help. And it gives your book a professional look. And we really do strive to do that with our designer. His name's Velen, and he's done so many books for us. He's so professional, and we get it go back and forward a few times until we get it right with him. I'll talk about him a bit later, but you also might need in your book some special features, and some people who are writing books that have got pull out sections or rounding up the end of each chapter might need some grey boxes or pull out quotes that really make that book shine. And really, we want to get it right and look in balance. We don't want the book to look too busy. So these are some of the things that we'll be discussing in more detail further down the track. But let's get straight into it. When you are thinking about your book, we already thought about the cover and we've got to find out what that size of your book is. So typically a book is 6 by 9 and that's in inches because it's American sizing still with books. However, when we do have a meeting with you, we're going to discuss, we should have already worked out the size, but we're going to discuss the fonts and we're going to look at the chapters. So here we go. Here's a font. I think this is like a Calibri font. And we're going to look at the chapter headers and if we've got emojis, if we've got any swirls, what about the line spacing and have we got any diagrams? So this was a book that was recently published. This is what's Sandy's book, and she went for a color book. Now not everybody does go with color, and she's gone for the standard sort of paragraph spacing. They're not indented, but they're all justified. So you can see here she's made some decisions about what she wants with her book here. So just going to go over to the next page and we're going to talk about what to expect. So going back a step, Julie, we book our authors in for a layout design meeting. So let's just talk about at the very beginning, when you finished your manuscript, you've signed it over, what do they do, Julie?
When they've signed, when they know that they're ready to let their manuscript go into layout, they book a meeting with you and I. We send them a sign off to layout email that has some example links in there for them to look at before the meeting of fonts and swirls and things like that. And then when we meet them on the call, we go through their manuscript and what we're looking for, Vivi and I, we're looking for those parts that you might like in a box. And we're making sure that all of your images are marked up in red as an instruction for the layout designer. And then we talk about the headings, we talk about the swirls underneath the chapter headings if you want them. We talk about the headers and the footers, and the headers, what they are is at the top of the book. On the left-hand side, you have the name of the book, and on the right, you have the name of the chapter, and the footers are the page numbers. So, you know, standard, usually it's just centered top and bottom, but sometimes some of our authors might like a bit of a different look, and we have examples of that that we can show you as well with some of the booklets that Velen has given us. We do a design style sheet, which has all of the instructions for Velen. So we tell him if it's a standard size. If it's not a standard size, we let him know there, the book size, the font, any visual design requests there, and anything else. Some of our authors might want indented paragraphs and not have them in the manuscript. So we let him know that, and many other elements like that, as in for the look of your book.
That's right, Julie. So we've gone through the manuscript, and I don't know if you've got the email there, but we're also looking at you've got everything in your manuscript before we go. So I'll just go back to my PowerPoint. Yeah, so what we're looking for is each section's there. You know, you might have a speaker bio, and we just make sure that everything is there in your book. Now, also what we're looking for, this discussion is quite in depth. We're going to do at least 45 minutes, and we're going to look at some designs of the book. So just on the page here, I'm going to talk just briefly about some of the decisions that have been made. So for instance, is there a, you know, how high do you want your book? Now, traditionally, a book starts a bit lower, but some authors don't like starting lower. They think it's a waste of space. So know that you're in control, but generally they will look like this. First chapter will look a little bit lower down the page, and it will have, you know, different fonts, probably taken from your cover. We try and tie in the cover fonts with what's internally. So you're going to choose your fonts, and I know Julie's probably got the font catalogue open. We'll show you that in a minute. But you also might want some swirls underneath the chapter. You might have a quote. So I'm going to show you that in a little bit bigger. So here you've got, you know, like some swirls. We've got different fonts. We've got quotes here. We've got, I think there's capital letter here on the left on the first one and underneath. And you can see these are the different styles. And this great big grey box one was where an author wanted to start each section one pull-out page, and we're starting a new section, and this one was called The Quest. So she's got a formula that runs through her book. So be aware that sometimes that works for authors. And here we go. Also here we've got a whole page taking up chapter 1, and so no writing. So these are some of the decisions that you'll start thinking about. And we also go through it in quite a lot of detail, don't we, Julie? So I'm just going to go back to here. So you can still see my page, can you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at some of the grey boxes now. So I've got, let me just find the grey boxes. So what do we mean by grey boxes? Hopefully you can see this all right, if not zoom in. So grey boxes is where at the end of each chapter, you might have something like some details that you want to express in pull out, you know, like reflections on relationships, if that's what you've been talking about. There might be a case study here that you want to pull out, and it's in a grey box. We've got an exercise over here that's in a box, and we've got just a quote, you know, something that's added there. So these are some of the features that we're talking about that you can start considering. Oh, I might put that in, depending on what you're writing about. And the other things that we look at are things like page numbering. Now I'm going to we look at page numbering, we might think it's just an easy decision, but sometimes, you know, you might have something that's running across the bottom like this little airplane. You might decide that actually I like my page numbering at the top right, or we like it at the bottom left. Here we've got it in the middle. Now that's normal. A lot of people choose it just in the middle here with a couple of dashes. So this is some of the details that we're going to go through with you, Julie. So what have we got any questions so far, or does everybody want me to keep going?
That's all right. There's nothing in the chat box, so you can keep going.
Okay. All right, so let's just talk about the manuscript sign-off. Let's go back into the detail again. We do have an email. I don't know if Julie's got that email open, but we just really need to look at the manuscript and its formatting. Now, the designer can format your manuscript, but it's so much easier if it's already really formatted how you want it. So in some cases, he will indent all the paragraphs if you haven't done them. But what we want is consistent styling. So if you've got bullet points and numbering, it's far better to have them already in the book. And you might not have been concentrating on them when you were writing, but we certainly do need them when we come to layout, you know, for that consistency. So he gets it right. Right. Julie, what about all the sections are in the manuscript? We do check that quite thoroughly, don't we? We tick them all off.
We do, yeah. We go, and that's the other thing we're looking at when we open your manuscript on the call. We zoom through. We actually go through it quite quickly because we're just making sure that everything's there, and we know what we're looking for as well. So occasionally there might be a section that the author has decided to put in and forgotten to include it. But there's no need to panic because sometimes we can get that done, get that quickly edited, and just let the designer know that that piece is coming. But it is much better to have all the sections already done. It makes for a much smoother process. When there's bits missing, it does get a little bit messy. I do have that sign off to layout email open, Vivi, if you
All
wanted
right.
me to
Yep.
share,
Yep. Cool. Well,
just so
then.
we can show. And because we go through the email on the call as well, you do get to have a look at this before we have the call, but then we go through it again with you on the call. And as we always say, when you get our emails, please read the email first, watch the videos, and then open the attachments if there are any. So there's a 8-minute video there. And then on the call, we fill this out and we send it to you and to us with the manuscript attached. So as you can see here, we've got the book size, the cover, the book, which is hardback or paperback. Standard is paperback, much cheaper to print as well. Cover finish, gloss or matte, and we show you examples on the call. Internal paper, we only have a choice of white or cream. They're the better quality of the paper. And we show you examples of that on the call. The internal printing is generally black and white, but some of our authors do choose colour. Children's books are colour. Your address and your print ready goal date. So we talk about that because we do allow 1 month in each process of the publishing journey. So 1 month in editing, which sometimes can blow out a little bit by a week or so. We allow 1 month in layout, and that's because we see a sample first, and sometimes the sample will go back a few times before we get to full layout. When we get to full layout, you have to proofread your book, send in any changes, which we're going to talk about soon, and then your editor will also do a proofing round before we're ready to print. We do allow a month in the print sign off as well because we have to print your proof copy first, which, yes, you get to read your book again before we're ready to do a bulk. So there is still quite a few steps to go, and we have to keep that in mind. So, and we also tell our authors, I always like to just remind, please don't book any launches when you reach layout. Please wait until we sign off to print. You can definitely start thinking about it, but please don't book anything until we get to print because we don't want to rush the process either. Because when we do that, sometimes we end up finding some errors. And then further on in the email, we just do a little checklist to make sure that all the bits and pieces are there. And then we send that off, and then we're ready to send it to the designer.
That's right, we are. So when we sit on the call, we're going to look at the fonts. I don't know if you opened the font catalogue, did you? I haven't opened it yet, but
I
some
did, yeah.
fonts are are beautiful. There are some fonts that you might like and you might have chosen from a different book that aren't standard fonts. So I just want to give you a top tip. If you choose a font that's not in the catalogue, we will ask the designer whether that's a standard font and what it will print up like, and if they can replicate that in the ebook, because not all ebooks can have exactly the same font because they are limited in what you can do with an ebook. But here is the catalogue. So what we're looking at with you are these traditional fonts, the serif fonts, and then we've got the sans fonts. These ones I call have got like the tails. They've got like a little swirl on the end and like a little bit of calligraphy. And they've been used in books from the beginning of typesetting days. But then we've got the sans serif fonts, which are more modern. If you click on that page, you see how rounded they are. And a lot of your manuscripts probably written in a Calibri font. And so you might have already preferred this font, but it's not uncommon for you to have a completely different font to what is in your manuscript, isn't it, Julie? So we go through this and we're looking at, if you just do your mouse, Julie, at the top, the name of the font, the spacing, and the point. So the point is obviously the size. We've got 11 here. I think on different pages, if you click over a few pages, we've got yeah, you'll see we've got size Myriad Pro, and we've got the space in a 16. And we want you to sort of look and what appeals to you. And we'll write down a list of the ones that you liked, and then we eliminate them. So we go through, don't we, Julie? We might end up with 5, and then we try and get it down to 2. It's sometimes an author knows what they want, and it's just one font, and that's going to go on the design sheet. And we're going to ask our designer, if he's got 2, to give you a couple of examples. We're also going to look at the headers. Now you might think, oh, the header. Some people want it all in caps, some people want it in title case, and some people want a line underneath to differentiate, that's the header and from the actual text. So I think you can probably see some of those in there. If not, I've got some examples.
Yeah. I've just opened.
Yeah, so you can see on some of these. Yeah. We're also going to ask, do you want that capital letter at the beginning of your chapter, and it'll be the first letter of the chapter, not all the paragraphs. You can see Julie's marking it up there. And I always think that looks rather nice and special.
Yeah.
And go from there. Is there anything else that we want to add in there, Julie?
I don't think so. Like, we do go through all of the fonts with you on the call. The first point, this one here, that's the size of the font, and the spacing is, in the spacing, obviously, in between the lines and things like that. So they're all a little bit different. Some are very similar, but you will get, I'm pretty sure that the link for this is in that sign-off email. So, you will get a chance to have a look at it first, but it's nice to go through together on the call. And some of our authors just say, no, I just want the same as what I've done in the manuscript, and that's totally fine. I always say put your reader hat on when you're making decisions like this as well. What do you like to read? Do you like a traditional font? Do you like a bigger font? All of that sort of stuff. And it also depends on your topic. We have had a couple of authors with quite emotional books that have chosen a larger font because they want their reader to be able to keep reading even through the tears. So there's all sorts of different things to take into account. But basically, I always just choose what I like to read, what I'm comfortable, not too small, not too big, just right. So that's what I do. Oh, you're on mute, Vivi.
We're also going to be looking at where the images are in your book. And some people have a lot of images and it becomes very complex. And we need to have clear instructions to the designer where he's wrapping around text, or is he putting a caption in. But and some authors have gone to great details and lengths with their own descriptions to the designer. So feel free, if you've got that amount of detail, that's fine as well. The more, the better. We've even done videos for him. But what we're trying to achieve is we're going to get a package of your manuscript, your cover, your blurb, your design style sheet of where all the instructions are, and we're going to hand it over to the designer. So he's got one project, and then he's going to get you a sample. So I'm just going to share my screen and go through the next part of my presentation. So we've handed it over, we've signed it off, we're not making any more changes to the manuscript, and we're now ready to get a sample. So the sample will be the first 20 to 30 pages of your book. You are then going to have a look at it. What, the decisions you made on the call, are they what you want? Do they resonate? Does it look fantastic? Now, we always get really excited when we see a new layout because your book really is starting to come to life. But you might think, oh, I really don't like this and I don't like that. And that's fine, because now we're going to ask for feedback on the font, feedback on the spacing, feedback on where your images are, if they've landed on the right page in the right place, and also if there's any tables. And we're going to go and make some tweaks and changes, aren't we, Julie? And we're going to give him feedback. And you might go through a couple of samples. You might go through one. Generally, we see 2 to 3 samples, but in some cases, authors need to see a bigger layout of their book. It's just so that they might have more images deeper into the book, which they need to see before they move to full layout. So that's okay as well. And when we are happy with the design, we say we are ready for full layout. And that's actually a sign-off stage. So we've signed off the manuscript. Now we're going to sign off the design. And hopefully we're going to lock it in, and we're not going to make any more design changes after that, because now the proofing is going to begin. So let me just talk about that, or Julie, you just talk about the proofing. I don't know if we've got a proofing sheet open, have we?
I've
Would you
got one
open?
open. Yep. Yep,
Yep.
I do. So I can talk about it first. So the proofing, what we're doing is we're just picking up little um,
Oh,
little changes, proofing changes, not editing changes. So when we're in full layout, we definitely do not add any extra paragraphs, and we don't take any out, because that's going to cause a lot of problem with the layout and the page count. And believe me, it does create a massive job. So we have to, that's why we do this sign off to layout. We have to be sure that we're ready. So when we're proofing, we're looking for, those little things like capital letters, spelling mistakes, which do get missed in the editing process sometimes. We're looking, I mean, obviously, if you've got like Julie Fisher and you want to change it to Vivi Mason, you can do that. Just those little changes throughout. And there is a proofing sheet, which I will show you now. And I'll get, I've got a layout open as well. So what we do, there is a video also in the email when we send you that. And we've also popped it here on the proofing sheet, because it's very important that we do this right. And it's not hard. So I'll just find a full layout for you. There we go. So what we're doing is, I'll go here. All right, so we're putting the page number. So this page number is Roman numeral 4. So we put that here on the side. Then we do the paragraph. So just say I'm doing this one. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, paragraph 5. And all we need to do is just highlight a part of the sentence that we want to change. So I'll just say I'm going to change this to I've known Julie for over a decade. So now my computer. So we highlight it like that. We go copy. So Command C or Control C, or you can right click and copy. And we paste it here. And then we tab over and we paste it again. Oops. And then I will put the change there. Oops, hang on. Sorry. All right, so when the designer gets that, and that's what we do throughout, we do not have to copy the whole paragraph. We only have to copy, say, like 5 to 6 words of the sentence, so that he does a search. So he does a search and replace. He searches for this, and then he copies this and he replaces it. So that's why it's really important to do it properly. What we don't want is something like this. Please make the name Julie. We don't want that. We want him to be able to find the text and replace it. Now, if you do have an instruction, what I do in my proofing sheets is I put the instruction in red. So say you've got an image on a page and you want it a bit bigger. Please make image larger. So that's how I do. So then he can clearly see, oh, hang on a minute, that's not a proofing change, that's actually an instruction. So he can see that. And that's pretty much how you do it. It is quite easy to do. And there is that wonderful video that's in the email and now also on the proofing sheet.
that's wonderful, Julie. And I can just go through, if we want to, we can go through some other things like the footnotes. I know some authors do have footnotes or references. So let's have a look at some of the other features that you've made a decision on. I'm going to just share my screen. And I'm going to bring up the footnotes. Now, footnotes can cause a few problems with InDesign, because you can see here, the bigger the footnote, it encroaches on the actual text. So we do have to be a little bit mindful of whether footnotes are a good idea. And they're also quite difficult in the ebook. So some of the pitfalls I'm going to talk about briefly are footnotes and sometimes alignment, bad alignments. I don't know if I've got a bad alignment here, Julie, but I might have it on my PowerPoint actually here. We're going to talk about crowded fonts, a bad alignment of bullet points here. We want these to, all be, all the same. We don't want them indented a bit like that. So just be aware that some of the pitfalls can be those. And then what we call inconsistent formatting, where maybe you've got subheadings that and the next level down subheadings, they might have got mixed up. We just need to be aware that when you're proofing, you're actually going to be looking for those consistencies as well. And any widows and orphans, that's where there's one line at the top which relates to the previous page, and the designer can sometimes, move it just fractionally so that you don't get what we call widows and orphans. And obviously we want you to check all your page numbering, and we want you to check whether the contents page is reflected. You might have to check, it says page 100, and let's make sure it is. Usually it's right, but sometimes there's errors hidden in there. So proofing is not just about the text, it's also about making sure that everything's in the right place. All right, so we can actually have a look at here. We've got when the bleeds of the book. So when we get ready for a printer, they're going to be interested in the bleeds for the book. And you can see that they've got here the dotted lines and how it looks. And so when we're checking a proof, which will be further down the track when you get a proof copy, we're actually making sure that everything fits on the page and there isn't any outside of that. So sometimes when we've got a layout where the page numbering is too low, it will get rejected. So that's another one of the pitfalls that we're looking for. Right, we can go back a step actually, and let's just talk again about the sample layout. I know we've skipped a step, but the reason why I'm going to show you this is because on a sample layout, we won't have the contents page yet because we're not locking anything in. So when you get your sample, you'll see it blank, and that's perfectly all right because he'll populate the contents page when we move to the full layout. So that's an example of a sample. And then I think I've got along here another one of the reference pages. Now, you might have references in your book, and I'll zoom in a little bit to show you what they might look like. And we do have different styles, and feel free, to pick a style that you like. Generally, we say keep it simple if you're doing references, but you might find, I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see a bit clearer. All right, let's just move it down a bit. You might find that we've got the alphabetical like this one here, and then it's slightly dropped text underneath. So that's a traditional way of doing it. We've also then got references that might be, let's find one here. Again, alphabetical, but it's not dropped in. And then we've got just a few resources here. So we always say try and keep it as simple as possible, but it's up to you how you design your references. Here we've got them in actual chapters. So some people prefer to do them like chapter 1 and the references chapter 2, just to keep it neat and tidy and easy to follow. Now, some of you also might want to do an index. Now, indexes, whole new ball game. They're actually done outside of the book by a professional if you are having an index, and it is one of the last stages of the book and the layout. So we can't do any indexing until we lock in the numbering. So just be aware, if you were planning on an index, it's better to plan it early, talk to your editor, and start thinking about how that's going to affect your book down the track. So I'm going to just go back to my PowerPoint and make sure we haven't missed anything. So those are some of the common mistakes we've covered off. And let's have a look. We've moved to full layout. We've got the proofing sheet, and Julie's gone through that. So are there any questions around the proofing? Because sometimes we can get a little bit lost with the instructions, but Julie and I are here to help you. So just let me know. Are there any questions? No?
And we go through everything with you when we meet you on the call, and you definitely don't have to remember everything straight up, but that's what we're here for. We're here to guide you. So any questions that do come up when you're in that phase with your book, you can let us know.
All right, that's right. So pro tips. Now, Julie and I have probably got loads of pro tips, and one of our top ones is follow the instructions, and don't make changes in the manuscript. We've had this, an author actually got their proofing and then converted it back to Word and then tried to do proofing from it, and it introduced errors because when you export a PDF back into Word, it might some of the fonts might turn into stars or spaces, and it makes the whole thing a real dog's dinner. So try not to do anything like convert it back into a manuscript. We can do that way at the end if that's what you want, but your proofing's got to be done with the PDF.
That's
okay.
Right.
One of the other things that Julie has mentioned is big editorial changes might mean you went to layout too soon. And that's not uncommon. I mean, I'd say about 1 in 10 might say, oh, I've got changes I need to make. And it's way better to send in a brand new manuscript, do those changes and let him relay it. You might get a small fee, but trying to do it into the proofing sheets is way too many changes for him. Okay, and what the designer also has is a service. If you've got really old photographs, they might be of your parents, they might be of, back in the 70s, they might be black and white. He can improve those images for a little extra fee. So if you're worried that some of your photographs aren't that good, don't worry, he can apply them. And it's about $10 per image to upgrade them. So that's not too bad.
Yeah, and he will flag them too. Like if sometimes we think an image looks good, but it's not quite right. And he'll give you the option. So he'll upgrade it and he'll send the before and after so that you can make the decision.
That's right, he does. And also allow for 15 images in your book. That's standard. But if you've got more, that's fine. There'll just be a small fee of $10 per extra fee. But also be aware that if you've got masses of images, he will need to do way more work in the ebook, and he might say, oh, this has taken me all day to do and I've got extra fees. So just be aware that sometimes we do get books that have got extra fees, and we never like passing any fees on to you guys, but in some cases we do. My next note is the footnotes, which I said can be tricky in the ebook. It's just because it's dynamic text and he has to work out where it's going. Because if you open up a phone and then the whole page is the footnotes compared to like a laptop, you can see that it's dynamic. So it has to change the size of the ebook text to the device that you're on. And like I said, they can be distracting. And the other thing is, if you have done your references with a reference sequence, reference 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then you decide to change the numbering of the references, it's going to screw them up because he can't actually sequence the references when it's in a PDF format. It would mean in some instances where we've added a reference, but that reference was added, say, in chapter 1, but we've added one, we've had to number it, say 110, totally out of sequence, because we cannot add in and we can't introduce a number and expect all the other references to change their numbers. Does that make sense, Julie? Did I explain that at all? Yeah, let me just stop my sharing. Hold on. Are you still seeing me all right?
No, you're not sharing.
Okay, so let me just go back here. Yeah, so that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll share my screen again. Are there any questions so far? Are people getting excited about their layout? Have you got like some ideas already in your head about what your book's going to look like? How many images? I know that some of you are getting ready for layout. So we've got Sandra. I can imagine her books. Yeah, and obviously lots of you are still writing your book, and that's totally fine, because you might come across a book that you love the layout of, and I would start taking photos of those. So let me just share.
That's another thing. If you do see something in a book that you like, as in the beginning of the chapter page or something like that, if you do see something that you like in a book you've got at home, take a photo of it, because we can send that into the designer with everything else so that he can see exactly what you're wanting.
That's right. So let's just go through what the designer's job is. So we've handed over the pack we've just discussed earlier, that he's got the design sheet, he's got the manuscript, he's got the cover from Nick because he wants to match those fonts, and he's going to make that initial sample, and then we move to full layout, and then you're going to start doing the proofing, and then we're going to get ready for your print ready file. So that actually is another sign off stage. It's a milestone that you're reaching because we're getting ready to upload it to Ingram Spark, and we're going to need you to have some logins. So open up an account and send those to us. We're going to ask Nick for the final cover, which will be adjusted to the page count, the spine, and we're going to ask Velen for the final book. Now, the final file is one single page, and you might see there's blank pages. I don't want you to get worried about that, but it's just that's how it's going to print. So it's going to be a single page file. It's named with the ISBN, and we're going to use that file to upload, but you will need to check it before we upload it and make sure it's correct. And once it's uploaded, you'll get an e-proof from Ingram Spark that Lendy will look at, and then we will print you a proof copy. So we're all getting through to these stages. So like I said, the designer's work is to get the full layout to you and make the corrections, do the final file, and then make further corrections. Once you find you've got your book in hand, you'll read it through and go, oh, I've missed this, I've missed that. And that's fine, because we want you to make sure that there's no errors. So that's good that you'll send us another proofing sheet. And then once it's all done and dusted, we'll start to create the ebook. So Julie, do you want to add anything else on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the blank page. So the reason why there is a blank page is because every new section begins on the right. So if the section before finishes on the right, when you turn the page, you'll have a blank on the left, and then the new section will start on the right. Now, this looks normal when you're looking at it in the proofing stage, because you're looking at a 2-page spread on your screen. So you're going to see the left and right pages. What happens is when we move to the final files, the print stage, it comes in a single page spread. And when you're going through that, all of a sudden you go, oh, there's a blank page, because it does look a bit weird in the single page spread. So that's what the blank page is. So don't panic. It is normal. And if you have a look through some books that you've got at home, you'll see that generally speaking, most books are like this. Some authors want to just keep it flowing, but I actually like the blank page because it gives you a bit of a break, and it helps you to find your spot if you're doing a chapter a day or something like that. So.
That's great, Julie. Just going to share my screen and make sure we've covered off everything that we just talked about. So we talked about creating the final files and the cover. We've just discussed that. And the page count, and then the opening up the Ingram Spark account. Now, Julie's going to send you a video on how to open up an account. So these are all the little steps. It's all part of the process. We need you to open up an account so we can upload your book and print you a copy. Like I said, you're going to get the e-proof, the book in hand, make the final changes, re-upload it to Ingram Spark with those changes, and then you'll be ready to start thinking about your launch. So we don't want you to book too early, but now is the time. You've had your proof copy. You can start getting excited and start thinking about your launch of your book. And we're going to then create your ebook. Now, just one of the things about the ebook, when we create an ebook, it's one of the final puzzle pieces, but we might have asked you not to print your bulk books yet. The reason is Velen often finds errors that when he transfers it from an ebook, full layout to ebook, that it might highlight some areas that have got errors. And I would say, like, I don't know, one book a month might have a little error. Yeah. Not much. We see plenty that don't have errors, but occasionally there is. So if you have got time up your sleeve, I would wait for the ebook before we print your bulk, just in case he finds something on. And it could be a visual. It could be, I don't know, we found double ups in the content page, or we found that there's inconsistency with the chapters and the emoji, and it might have been like it was the emoji first, then the chapter, and then it's got mixed up, and it's never been picked up by anybody. So just be aware that can happen too. And then we're really good to go, Julie, aren't we? So that's it for me. Here's some top tips about your experience with the designer. So Julie, just read us through this.
Yeah, so definitely trust the designer's experience. I mean, we've all got different likes and dislikes. So he's going to be guided by us. But, sometimes he'll sort of say, oh, I don't think this is going to look any good. How about this? And he'll give you both examples so that you can have a look. Um, as I said before, sometimes we've got to take our author hat off and put our reader hat on and, look at our books with the reader's perspective, because our reader is not going to be looking for all the little nitty bitty bits that we want perfect. And remember what Nat says, perfection equals insanity and looping. So sometimes when you're proofing your book, you really need to put your reader's hat on too, and think about what you do when you read a book. You're not looking for errors, you're just reading the content. And yeah, a clean layout makes a smoother read, so not too many busy things on the pages. Don't underestimate the white space. And we do have some tips from Velen as well, do's and don'ts that we can send you. We can get Rye to send it after the presentation. We can have a quick look if we want to, but
Yeah, I don't know if you open it, Julie. I didn't
yeah, I
open it.
did. I'll just find it.
All right, I'll stop sharing. So this is really from the designer's point of view now, what some of the pitfalls that he finds he's working on. And he's a really lovely guy. He's in Bulgaria, so he's offshore. He's not actually far from Macedonia. And he has written a little bit of, do's and don'ts, the things that he sees. So we'll send you this just so that you know in advance what he's looking for. So here he says he's looking at a fully proofed manuscript, which it is. It's been through loads of different edits, and hopefully it's ready. But that's what it's all about. It's about proofing now instead of editorial changes. He's looking for images that are 300 DPI, and if not, then he can try and improve them. He's looking at tables. Now, he's mentioned tables here because he wants you to create tables properly. He doesn't want you to use your space bar to make, to align things. That's an error that we all make, when we can't be bothered to use the tab key or set up tables properly. He said it's way harder when you're using the space bar to align things. When he comes to try and do it in a design, he has to completely redo them and try and fix up those spacebar errors. He also wants clear instructions. He's saying include a full sentence here, but we know that he'll take apart a sentence. But what we don't want is a whole paragraph and changing. Well, sometimes we see, like, I'll go back a step, that there's multiple changes in a paragraph. And in that case, it's no good just sending one line of the paragraph, 2 lines of the paragraph. It's probably easier to write the whole paragraph if you're changing the whole paragraph. That's what I wanted to say. All right, then he says export Canva files properly. So sometimes you've created a handout in Canva, which is fine. We can add those as an image, but he's saying he wants them to make sure that they're 300 DPI, because sometimes when you use their templates, they're not quite sharp enough. And he's saying stick to one footnote style. So numbers, asterisks, symbols. So sometimes we've seen asterisks, and if you've got lots of them, you could end up with 10 asterisks. I think it's far better to use numbers, or even a symbol. But I don't like the asterisks, but we have seen those being used. And then he's just gone, what I've just been speaking about is the wait for the ebook before you print your bulk. Use official proofing tools. Stick to that's ultimate 48-hour author, our formats, our proofing sheet there, and then describe your design style sheet in words. So sometimes when you want to change the design, you might want to just write bullet points to us on an email rather than use the design sheet, and that's fine as well. And then he's saying you don't have to indent everything manually. If that's what you're looking for, he can do it for you. And then convert Apple images. He's talking about changing them to JPEG before sending those. So if you've got Apple images.
Yeah, that would be phone images, I would say. And if you've got old photos that you're wanting to put in your book, and you're a little bit worried about them, you can get apps on your phone that will scan the image, and that gives you a better quality than taking a photo of a photo. And with Canva, you can actually choose a print quality download when you're downloading them for your book, and they're better. So yeah.
All right. So he's got the don'ts. You can go through the don'ts if you like, Julie.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, don't make large text edits after layout because this causes changes in the pages and extra design time because he also has to then go back and fix the content page as well and make sure it all matches up. So it does take a lot of time. And I had to do a presentation a couple of years ago, and it was like a 9-page layout that I did, and then I found out I had to only had to be 6 pages, and it took me about 6 hours to condense it down from 9 to 6. So I can't even imagine how long it would take him for 100 and something page, 200 and something page book when there's editorial changes like that. Don't submit hundreds of tiny fixes. Small changes across many pages takes hours. So yeah, if you've got like a paragraph, like I did say before, that you don't have to copy the whole paragraph, but if you've got one paragraph that's got a comma, a capital letter, and it's got like 5 changes within that paragraph, of course you can copy that whole paragraph and do that on the proofing sheet because that's a lot easier. Because otherwise he's then going back and forth to the same paragraph. Don't send small or low res images. Um, you can see there that he says a 4x4 image on screen prints as 1x1 and blurry. So just make sure that your images are clear, or someone's drawing on the screen. But he will recommend upgrades if he feels if he feels that they need it. But he'll give you the choice. He will show you both. Some of our authors will go with the upgrade and pay the little fees, and others will choose a completely different photo, and that's fine as well. You can make photo replacements on the pages as well. Don't make layout changes after the ebook is final because it requires redoing both of the files, which is double the work. Don't build an index until the manuscript is 100% finalized, which is what Vivi said before. And again, don't mix the footnote types, just stick to one type. So we want our books to be uniform anyway. We want them to be clear and easy for our reader. Don't create tables using manual formatting, which is what Vivi said earlier as well. Don't work on changes in multiple versions, which is also what we were talking about before. So when you've got your PDF, I have known an author to get the PDF, but then do the proofing with the signed off manuscript, even not even converting it, but using the manuscript. And the page numbers are all different. So you must work in the and don't highlight only one word in the edit notes. So if you've got one word that you need changing, you might have that one word in every paragraph on the page. So you do need to at least include 5 or 6 words of that sentence so that he can find it. And don't use all caps for manuscript titles. Use normal capitalized case. And I think
That's it. I think we're nearly done, Julie. I mean, we
oh
can
yeah,
send this
yeah.
handout, yeah, to you. I think we're more or less done with our presentation.
Mhm.
Any final thoughts on the layout process, Julie? I mean, I know that a good layout is often about the spaces that you leave as well. That room to breathe when you're a reader. You don't always want it all crowded. So that's my pro tip: is think about the spacing. White space is just as good as any other design feature. So have you got any other pro tips, Julie?
Yeah, I do. Don't be scared to let it go and enter layout as well, because sometimes we sit there and we think, oh my goodness, have I got everything in the book? Have I forgotten something? But our editors will also say, we're ready for layout. Don't overthink it. Let's go. Let's just go. And, because the longer we hold on to our manuscripts, if we hold on to it, of course things are going to change and then we're going to want to make changes. So just let it go and let's get to layout. And you know what, if you have forgotten something, you can use that as a social media post to go with your book. You can write an article which is then more social media promoting about your book. Every article I've ever written has ended up with a picture of my books in the media presentation as well. So we can always use extra content that we might have forgotten if we need to in formats like that. But from experience, I'm doing my 5th book at the moment. We don't forget stuff. Our books are ready when they're ready, and don't hold on to it. Don't be scared. We're here to hold your hand and guide you through the process, and it really is a lovely process.
It is. It's gorgeous. And I don't know if anyone's got any more questions. I know Susan was asking about extra costs, and I think you've covered that off. But if anyone does have a question now, or just wants to have a quick chat about what's going through their head at the moment with their book design, come off mute. I'll pick on someone. What's going through your head, Barry? You got all these decisions. Come off mute.
You're on mute still.
How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I'm using my tablet here. Got some technology issues, but that was great. It was fantastic. I'm trying not to get too into that part of it yet because I'm still a long way off. Yet what I was really impressed with is just how this whole system has been thought out, and the support and everything is there. So I'm looking forward to jumping into it, I suppose, even faster and getting everything done.
That's right. We have covered everything off. It's like a massive jigsaw, and we try and leave little breadcrumbs each step of the way. So wherever you are is where we're going to be to help you. So when we're moving to layout, it is quite a significant step, and we want to make sure that you have all the parts of your book ready, but also that you're comfortable in moving on, because we don't want you moving too soon if you're still making those changes to your manuscript. But equally, as Julie said, are you hanging on to it is another thing you've got to recognize. Are you too scared at them? It's beginning to come very real, and you're going to have to start marketing your book now. It's going to be a book. So you might actually have a little bit of fear around that. And that's perfectly normal. As Julie said, we're all we're a little bit scared of those next stages. And that's why we're here to help you, reassure you, give you confidence. And some of our authors might need more hand holding. They might need more samples than others before they can make a decision. And that's okay. If you need a bigger sample, that's okay too. We're here to help you get through that stage and then start proofing. You might say, I'm sick of looking at this book. Can it go straight to the editor? I don't want to look at it. I don't want to proofread it. And that's fine as well. They'll go and do their final proofing round, and then we'll get it printed. And then you can maybe get your partner or someone to read it if you're tired of looking at it, because you do get weary of your words. And sometimes it's good to take a break and have someone else do those jobs as well. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's why I call them our book babies, because we go through a lot of pain while we're, going through it, because we're learning new things, and sometimes that's challenging. But when we get our book, we forget about all that hard work that we've just done, and we're really proud of that little book baby that we're holding. It's one of the most wonderful experiences you'll ever experience. What else was I going to say? The other thing is, always make sure while you're in the publishing process, please keep your book at the top of your priority list, because it's not going to be there forever while you're putting it all together. It's only, as Nat says, it's only a pain in the butt for a short while. And then you get to have all this fun and adventure with your book. The opportunities that happen from our books are incredible. I never would have dreamed in a million years the stuff that I'm doing now, just because I wrote a book about our journey. So it's a beautiful experience, and we're here to guide you. Don't be scared. Always ask us questions. And we'll follow you up too. Don't worry about that once you're in the process. If we think you're holding on to something and we haven't heard from you for a little while, we're going to send you a follow-up and say, how's it going? Come on, let's keep moving.
That's right, because we're worried that our emails didn't make it to you, and that's happened before. And we think we haven't heard from so-and-so, and then we think, oh, well, she normally takes a little bit to respond, find out she never got the email. So this is why we kind of do want to make sure that Techie didn't let us down as well.
Yeah. One of the things that you did mention was that to be looking at books that you have on your bookshelf and just see those designs and see what matches for the book that you're writing. And I thought that was good, because I just remember books that I've purchased and it's got tiny little writing and it's like lines on the page, and it takes you about 3 weeks to get through one page.
I can't read books like that. I get really distracted. I can't read books like that because I'm so busy concentrating on seeing the words that I'm not taking any of the information in.
And it's funny, I had one author say that when they went back to their bookshelf and looked at books, they had a whole new appreciation of the work that went into them, because they've done it themselves. And they go, wow, this is a massive book. God, they must have had so much work. And they got that new sort of fellow author and publishing experience that they can relate to, all that heartfelt blood, sweat and tears. Oh, wow. So are there any other comments you want to make? I know Rebecca said that we've answered questions you didn't even know she had, which I thought was quite funny. Thank you for that.
I am going to have to go because I do have another Zoom meeting in like 2 minutes. So thanks everyone for joining. Vivi and I do love bringing you these workshops. We put a lot of work into putting them together for you as well, and I hope you got a lot out of it. But always ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions because that's what we're here for. You're all learning something new. So I'll see you all soon.
And I'll see you all soon as well. Okay, bye-bye.